First of all, I want to ask some questions about your relationship to Hungary. Why are you so addicted to the country?
Well, the first reason, of course, is indeed that I married here more than 25 years ago. Secondly, I believe Hungary is a very strong country that knows its own national identity, that even centuries ago fought for the existence and against the Islamization from the Ottomans to others.
You have a special friend here in Hungary, Bunyós Pityu, the musician.
Yes,
Will
from Nyírparasznya.
Yes. Will you meet the next day, coming days?
Maybe. I don't. You know, I'm traveling a lot in these days. I will have a lecture in Nyíregyháza, Debrecen, Sopron, Győr. So I try to, of course, always to see him. He's a very friendly person, and maybe it's possible at the end of the trip to have a palinka with him.
Will you meet any of the representatives of the Hungarian government?
That could be the case. Yes, maybe.
Is it a possible scenario, Huxit, Hungary leaving the EU? What do you mean? What are the pros and cons?
Well, of course, that's up to the Hungarian people, Hungarian government, and not for me to decide. So I cannot really say a lot about that. I can tell you why I would favor an exit, a Dutch leaving the European Union. And that is not only for economical reasons. I believe that we would gain more if we would be still working together with other countries, but not in a political, but in an economical union. But also when it comes to the nation state. Once again, I believe that a democracy needs a nation state. The people need a national flag, a national anthem, and a national identity. And I believe that the European project, when it became a political union, where we transferred sovereign national rights to, made the nation state weaker. So I want to get it back. You know, it's crazy. In Holland, we are not even able to decide on our own border control, where we should have border control, who we should allow into our house and who not. It's all decided by Brussels. So of course I want our economy to flourish, and it will and it can, but I believe that more important is that we decide about our own faith. And it's ridiculous that Hungary, for instance, now will be taken to court because unelected bureaucrats from Brussels will impose on them immigrants that the Hungarian people do not want. And that will only get worse. So if you would decide as an Hungarian people for a Hexit, that would be the reason. Of course, I understand that you also have a big incentive to stay in the European Union, which is to receive our billions.
And is the European Union repairable?
No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, not anymore. It became a monster that did not only took our sovereign rights, but we voluntarily transferred it to them. And as with any monster, if you give something, it will not be returned. But the end of the political union called the European Union, it's inevitable that it will happen.
The main point of view for you is freedom.
Yes.
And the critics of the Hungarian government always say that the country lacks of freedom here.
But
because of the government's actions.
Okay, but as I understood, Hungary is still a democracy. You still have free elections. You still can vote for any party you want. So I don't see that there is no freedom in Hungary. I mean, I don't see so much contradiction myself.
Understand. Let's turn back to migration.
Yes.
What's your opinion about the Hungarian government's solutions and the border fence? Is the latter good for the West or the Netherlands?
Well, I think that a lot of European countries benefited from the fence in Hungary. Not only the fence, but the tough immigration policy. That's why the elections in March or in April that you will have are very important for the rest of Europe as well. I think that a lot of people in Brussels would really applaud, and a lot of champagne bottles would be opened if another government would be elected. And whatever government is in charge, that the thing to do is to close the national borders, to resist unelected European bureaucrats to enforce certain policies on your own nation state, is to stand up for that and to fight for your own people and your own identity. And to be honest, I see very little politicians, you know. It's not Mrs. Merkel, it's not my own Prime Minister Rutte, it's not Mr. Macron. I see very few of them in Europe today who are really fighting for the interest of their people.
And do you see any dangers that Hungary will face in the future? I mean, new values and slums at the edge of the big cities with mostly people with immigrant backgrounds.
In Hungary?
Yeah, in the future.
The so-called asylum crisis, which was not really an asylum crisis because most of them were not really asylum seekers, went not to Hungary or to Lithuania, but went to countries with a big fat welfare state, to Germany, to Holland, to other countries which have a big welfare state. Go to many neighborhoods in many cities in Holland, Belgium, Sweden, Denmark, you will feel yourself not in your own country anymore. But unfortunately, I'm afraid that will change. As I said in my short speech, we haven't seen anything yet. If you think that the Syrian crisis was a tough one, even today, 6 million people are waiting around the Mediterranean to come to Europe today. What I tell my friends in Hungary, as I do when I speak in America, don't think that what is happening in our countries today will not happen to Hungary tomorrow. Be vigilant. Nobody is immune, unfortunately, for terrorism. I hope it will not happen in Hungary, but it can happen everywhere. Everywhere where you allow Islam in, everywhere when you fight for the preservation of your own identity, everywhere where you criticize. Problem is, that's the first chapter in my book, it's called The Axe versus the Pen. We use the pen, but many of them, of course not all of them, use the axe, and that's an entirely different thing to deal with.